What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the DK Garage. I'm Jeremy, that's Joe, and this is the Race Day Rundown.
We're at Las Vegas Motor Speedway this week. We had a lot of exciting action last week. I'm sure we're in store for some exciting action this week. If you want to get in on our free DraftKings contest, we have it every week. Drop your DraftKings tag below. We'll get you on that weekly invite list. It's a lot of fun to interact with everybody over there on DraftKings. Free contest. Get in there while you can. Check out our Patreon as well. We've got a lot of good content there to go along with all the data we're about to dive into. We've got a lot of mile-and-a-half data we're going to go over here in a little bit, but we've got the race guide there that has it's a great digital magazine, kind of pairs with the data we are going over, gives you a little more visibility, I should say, to this. And then the Garage Thoughts is also there. We've got discounted rates right now. Go ahead and take advantage of that. But you want to kind of take it from here with the race preview and dive into what we're getting in store this week at a mile and a half.
This is a huge race. I think a lot of people are going to be approaching this race from like, oh, it's just another mile and a half. This is going to be essentially everyone's best, maybe outside of Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson. This is probably everyone's best chance to lock themselves into the next round if they're in the playoffs. This is also a good opportunity for other teams who are already eliminated or didn't make the playoffs to have another good run. I think this is going to be a very competitive race. I don't know how much passing we see up front other than the restarts, so these restarts are going to be crucial. Guys who tend to excel, I think we're going to be looking at them. But this is going to be a fantastic race, a lot of pressure, because the next two races are essentially wild card races. So you should see some guys making some crazy moves. I'm all about it. It's going to be fun. It is a 400-mile event, so that means there are 267 laps. Like I said, it is a mile and a half. Not as much performance points as we've been seeing, but they are still relevant, especially if we see one guy really get out front and lead a lot of laps, get those fast laps. You don't have them, your day's done. There's 186.9 potential performance points up for grabs. The stages are going to break down in 80 for the first stage, 80 for the second stage, and 107 for that final stage. They will be starting this race a little later in the afternoon. It's still pretty hot in Las Vegas. They're going to kind of let it chill out. So we got another night race, kind of evening to night. But this one is on Sunday. And the last time we were here was Kyle Larson's first victory of the year that really just set off a chain of impressive, basically still going impressive run for that 5 team. So should be an interesting race. But let's get into the drivers unless there's anything else that you wanted to mention before we do that.
I think you mentioned Kyle Larson. He's at the top of the salary board this week, $11,100 starting first. I've gone ahead and given him a 10 on my impact score. I think he's in a prime spot to dominate this race. And you talked about the performance points being a little bit less that are available. If he's out there dominating, you want that. We saw a lot of action in the spring race between leaders kind of getting shuffled up and different 3 and 4 wide racing up at the front. It's going to be fun to see if we can get a couple different dominators. How are you approaching that? Because I think also something to take into consideration from a strategy standpoint is you can really pass a lot if you're get sent to the back, and this is a longer race, so you have an opportunity to make your way up through the front. So if somebody does get sent back in tech, don't worry about them too much if they're a fast car like a Kyle Larson or something, but maybe tone down your ownership. And if you have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, if you kind of look at some of Kyle Larson's performance, he hasn't always been the best right out of the gate. It takes him a little bit. So even if he does go to the rear, it obviously hurts his chances of leading more laps, but that doesn't mean he couldn't still dominate the second and third stage, which would be more than enough to be optimal. So I think from a strategy standpoint, you're looking at least one dominator, but I think with this race we're going to be looking at 2. It might even get split up to between more like 3 guys, and then at that point I think that opens the door for a little bit more of these mid-tier guys. It'd be really interesting to see how it plays out because there's a lot of guys at the top of the salary board who have a lot of opportunity to lead a lot of laps. So for me, I just cannot not give Kyle Larson a 10 here. He's starting on the pole, Won the last race. He's been really good on more of the really all 1.5 miles, but even the lower tire wear 1.5 miles. He's been so good on it. So even if he does get sent to the rear, I think that wouldn't change my ownership too much on him. I'm at a 10 on him. The other Kyle, he comes in right below him on the salary board. Hometown kid, 10,800. He starts 10th. Not the best 1.5 miles for Kyle Busch overall in his career, but he's been really, really good on 1.5 miles this year. This is his. I think if he does not, I think he almost has to win this race to advance in the playoffs. I think it's that critical for Kyle Busch. I think he can do it. I don't know if he gets that win, but I think he should have a strong run. I'm looking for him to get a top 5 and lead some laps. I'm going to be at a 9.5 on Kyle Busch, but I mean, from their perspective and the playoff perspective, I think this is a must-win for that team because Talladega Superspeedway, I mean, it is not always – you can't count on that, and he really hasn't had the best of luck at the Roval. So I wouldn't be counting on that race for him either. So I think this is a crucial race for that 18 team.
I agree 100% with you. And this being a 550 horsepower package race, it kind of fits with what he's been doing better this year. They've looked really to be the second best at times, the best 550 horsepower car with Larson. I think that he is in that situation where he needs to have a strong performance. So I'm at a 9.5. I think he really feels the pressure because he knows what it's like to miss the next round, and he wants to be able to stamp his way, mark his way to that next round early.
His teammate, he's next on the board, 10,500. Denny Hamlin, he starts 6th. Really, I mean, other than the issue at Bristol, he had a phenomenal first round. Best driver of the first round overall. Has the win. Led a ton of laps, lots of performance points. Hamlin and that 11 team, they are cooking right now. I'm going to be a little less on him. I'm going to give him a 9, which I think is still a solid score. You still got to consider him, but there's a couple drivers, Larson, a few other ones that we're going to talk about. I like just a little bit more than Hamlin. I think he could have a really solid day, but maybe miss some of those laps led, which could hurt his overall score. But I think Hamlin is in a great spot this week. You definitely got to look at him. But also I think a guy who's got to be careful in this round because he's got a lot lines up for him to do well, but these tracks are so tricky. If he gets in the hole at Vegas, you never know what's going to happen at Talladega. And then with the way Larson has emerged in the road courses, and we know how good Chase Elliott and Truex have been at the Roval, that's no gimme for Hamlin. So it's a very important race for that 11 team as well.
I think they've come prepared. He's seemed to be on his A game this year. I think they've been really consistent starting where he is with his price tag. He's got a chance to dominate this race. I've given him a 9 as well. I think he's got a good bit of upside, maybe not as much as some of these other drivers, but you still want some exposure to him, in my opinion, especially as many times as I think we can see leaders change here at this race. Somebody I do want a lot of exposure to is the next guy, though, Chase Elliott. 10,200 starting 11th. He's got some place differential upside. He's also pretty quick. This might not be his best track, and he does have opportunities at the Roval to get the job done, so he could be a little bit more risky and see if he can get a win here and really make his mark and get into the playoffs, stamp it early. I don't know if he does, but I think he's got a prime spot to really pay off on the DraftKings side. I've landed on a 9.5 with him.
Well, you mentioned the Roval, but he's also pretty good at super speedways and Talladega. He does have a win there too, so I think that they're going to do really well here because I think they feel comfortable in this round. I don't think there's a lot of teams that are going into this second round with where they're at in the points and all that feel comfortable. I think a lot of teams have got to feel nervous, especially with this first race. I have a feeling that 9 team and probably the 5 team are about the only 2 guys who come into this round feeling like, look, if we have a bad race at any of these tracks, we're good enough at all the other ones. We can push through. We don't know how good Kyle Larson's going to do at Talladega because he had the issue at the first race, didn't run a full lap at speed. So we'll see how he feels about that one. But I think Chase Elliott is a great play here. I think I almost like him a tad more than Larson personally, but you just got to recognize the domination that Larson's had all year. So I'm at a 9.5 on Chase Elliott.
Joey Logano, $9,900. He's starting 9th. I've given him an 8.5. I think he's got plenty of upside starting 9th. We haven't seen necessarily the speed on 1.5 miles this year, so I want to be a little bit cautious, but he's still a strong play and has a lot of upside. He needs to have a strong performance. I'm looking at him and that Penske team to be able to have a strong show up and have a strong performance. Where are you at on Logano this week?
He's run really well here in both the spring and the fall races. He tends to run better in the spring than he does the fall. He's got 2 wins in the last 3 spring races, and he has 0 wins in the fall races, but he does have the second best driver rating overall. But my issue with Logano is he has just not performed very well on 550 tracks this year. Penske as a whole really hasn't done that great. I think Blaney's been probably the best overall. He does have a win on 550, so that was Atlanta, higher tire wear, but still. But Penske's pretty solid here at Vegas, so I think Logano's worth a look. I'm going to be at an 8, so I'm a little less than you, but there's some PD upside, and you never know. They could come out and hit it, but, man, there's just so many good drivers in this playoffs, and it's just, if we're just basing it off of performance per engine package, this is not shape up to be the best for this rate or this year for Logano.
We could kind of say the same about the next driver, Martin Truex, 9,700 starting 4th. I've given him an 8 because they haven't really been that strong in the 550 horsepower package as we've seen, obviously, with the 750. Then I look at his fall stats here at Vegas, and it just jumps at the board. I really do want a little bit of exposure to him because you want to dive into a little bit of the stats that you put together in the garage thoughts?
Well, the thing about Truex is he's averaging a little less than 11th in the spring race, but his average finish over the last 3 fall races is 2.7. Includes a win, all 3 in the top 5. Been really, really strong. The best driver rating in the fall the last 3 races. Larson's up there too. He's only got 2 out of the last 3 from this data because he didn't race at the fall race last year, obviously. He's really strong. But Blaney is also there. But, I mean, when you just look at Truex, 2.7 average finish, you can't really ignore it. So, overall, I'm going to be at an 8 on Truex. I think I'm going to find a few ways to get him in. But you're right, starting 4th, it's a little tough to want to plug him in given how he's run overall on 550 tracks. He's definitely been better at the 750s. So, we'll kind of see what we get with Truex this week.
I think Kurt Busch, 9,500 starting 20th, is where we differ most this week. I've given him an impact score of an 8, and you're at a 6.5. Why are you at a 6.5? And I'll kind of follow up where I landed on an 8 with him.
I gave Kurt Busch a 6.5 because I'm tired of getting burned by Kurt Busch. The last 2 weeks, he's kind of haven't been too heavy on him in DraftKings, but I've been using him in most of my price picks, and he's just killed me every time. I mean, he obviously the blown tire at Richmond, I mean, that's not really his fault, but it still hurt. He finished last. And, man, I really expected a lot more out of him last week at Bristol, a place he has had 6 wins at in his career. They needed to win. They were in the hole, and they just laid an egg. So there is PD upside. Kurt Busch does have a win here recently. I think he won actually the last fall race. So there's reasons to play Kurt Busch, but they have been a little inconsistent. And like I said, I'm kind of tired of getting burned by him.
Yeah, I'm at an 8 because I think he's a great GPP play with that place differential, obviously. Plus, a lot of people feel the same way you do, and I think his history here, and then we've seen how fast they've been in 550 horsepower towards the end of the season. I think he's a great building block in the GPP and tournament environment. Kevin Harvick's a GPP play, in my opinion. He's 9,300 starting 5th. We've seen them be a little bit stronger being 550 horsepower equipment. It's going to be interesting to see where they land this week. I've given him a 7. Where are you at?
I'm going to give Harvick a 7.5. I mean, not the best mile and a half for him, but they really, I mean, it's hard to say. There's been a definite increase in performance since the playoffs started from that 4 team, but all those were on 750 horsepower tracks. I don't know how much that converts over to this mile and a half, but I'm sure that they're fired up. I'm sure Harvick's fired up. I think Harvick might be the reason why I didn't give Chase Elliott a full 10 because we don't know if that's going to carry over in this race at all. Maybe that's another reason why I didn't give Harvick a little higher, but I think he's a solid play. You got to consider him. I'd love a little bit more PD from him than fifth, but it is what it is. So I think he's worth a look, but I won't be too heavy on the number 4 team.
These two guys that we're going to talk about next, I think, are really interchangeable and offer very similar paths to value. Ryan Blaney, 9,100 starting second. William Byron, 8,900 starting third. I've given both of them 9. I think they both could be dominators in the right place at the right time if things shuffle their way. They've both been really fast in 550. I think Byron more so and more consistently than Blaney. I lend to want to have exposure halfway between both of them. I don't think one of them has an edge versus the other. Do you see it any differently?
Yeah, I think, based on the salary and where they're starting, I agree they are kind of similar plays. But when we look at the stats, there is a pretty big difference. Average over the last 3 fall races for William Byron is unimpressive 23rd. And Ryan Blaney's average finish is 5.7, including 2 top 5s. All 3 races, he finished inside the top 10. The 6th best driver rating overall. So he's been really solid in the fall races here. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, Penske seems to have something a little bit figured out here. So I think everything on paper suggests Ryan Blaney is actually a little bit better play than William Byron. But I'm going to give Blaney 8.5, and I'm going to give Byron a 9. There's really no PD upside with Byron more so than Blaney, and I think both have the potential to lead laps. But I think, kind of like what you said, I think Byron has been a little bit more consistent in this package overall than Blaney. The win that Blaney had earlier was on a high tire wear track at Atlanta, a little different. So I think Byron is a guy, if Larson is not able to hold that lead early, I think Byron is a guy who could literally get out front and lead 40, 50, 60 laps. If he does that, you're good. So I think I give the edge to Byron, but I would not fault anyone for picking Blaney over him.
I think his Ryan Blaney's teammate, Brad Keselowski, 8,700, starting 8th. He could be somebody to take a look at and find a way to get in your lineups. He's got decent performance. We talked about the strength of Penske in this package at times. 7.5 is where I land on him because I think he can find some ways to be fit into your lineups. I wouldn't have him in a cash game scenario, but GPP, I think he could be value.
Yeah, Brad, it seems like every week is one of the more difficult guys to try to figure out. I just don't know what we're going to get from him. We look at history. There's a lot that lines up for him, but I think one thing you got to consider is he's not coming back to Penske next year. So you got to think all the best equipment is going to the 22 team of Logano and the 12 team of Blaney. You got to figure that's where they're really focused. And then Brad, do your best. I think he should run well here. I think he definitely can, but it's hard for me. I'm going to give him a 7, which I still think is a solid score. But I'm with you. I'm not playing him in cash. I'm not risking that. I'll play him in GPPs where I can kind of fit him in. 87 isn't too much for a guy that has dominator upside. But, man, it's just tough to have any sort of confidence with that 2 team with how they've run over the last really a couple months. So I don't know exactly what we're going to get from that team, but I think a 7 is a solid enough score.
The next guy I want to talk about, Alex Bowman, 8,300, starting 7th. I've given him an impact score of 8 because I think him being a playoff driver and then this being a mile and a half, we've seen him get 3 top 5s in this package on these style of tracks this season. I think this could be somewhere where you can find some cheap value this week. Yeah,
and he's not too bad here overall. It's not, it's pretty good for Bowman standards with where he's kind of run. His average finish overall in the last 6 races here at Las Vegas, his average finish is 13.5. Not too bad there. Not obviously what we're looking for this week, but when you see those averages and you know he's had a few bad races in there, I think he's a guy that could be a little sneaky. I think I'd almost rather risk it with Bowman than Brad if I'm looking at that GPP since Brad's 8th, Bowman's 7th. I don't feel confident playing Bowman. But the fact what he was able to do last week, pressure's on. Both him and William Byron got in the next round. So I'm going to give Bowman an 8.5, but I definitely don't feel super confident in it because he's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde driver. We just don't know what we're going to get week to week.
The next driver is a green flag in our driver spotlight in our race guide. Austin Dillon, 8,100, starting 15th, has that path to value because of place differential. He's really good at this track, and he seems to be dialed in this package and on mile and a half this year. I've given him a 9. I think there's a lot of upside with him. He's really more of a cash game play for me. I think he can be a building block in this price range because it's going to be difficult to find value lower this week, in my opinion, and have some strong plays. So I want to have somebody in this price range that I'm confident locking in. I'm at a 9 on him.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see if he goes maybe a little lower owned than he should, because I think everyone's going to be trying to cram as many guys above him as possible, the potential dominators. And then there's some guys that we're going to get into here in a second that have some pretty substantial PD upside. Dillon's kind of in that spot where you're like, well, maybe he's a 13th, 14th place driver. Maybe he doesn't really get that many points, and maybe you can snag him lower owned than he should, because I think he's a top 10 threat for sure. If we are giving him a 9th place finish and just some basic performance for him, I mean, we're already over a 5x value. $8,100, it doesn't completely wreck your lineup to get that 5x. I like Dillon a lot. I'm an 8.5, so slightly lower than you are, but I'm a big fan of Dillon this week. I hope he does well.
I'm in the same boat with his teammate Tyler Reddick, 7,800, starting 13th. He's got top 10 upside in this package. We've seen RCR be really consistent and competitive in the 550 horsepower package. He's got 3 or 4 top 5s or top 10s in 6 races on mile and a half this year. I think Reddick is somebody barely missing the cut last week, has something to prove. He could come out and snag one.
Yeah, he certainly could. I think if I'm comparing Dillon and Reddick just head to head straight up, building the lineup, the last guy in there, price doesn't matter. I think I would personally give the edge to Dillon. That's why I gave him an 8.5. I'm at 8 on Reddick, but I wouldn't fault anyone for wanting to play Reddick. I think he's in a good spot. I think he's another guy that will probably go a little bit more passed over than some of these next guys we're about to talk about, because there's not a lot of PD upside, but I think a sneaky play. I think he could get some good fast laps too. I mean, they've been running really well since them and Hendrick Motorsports kind of formed that alliance. I believe last year or beginning of this year, their motors have been really strong. They've had some speed, so I think both Reddick and Dillon, these teammates, I think that they have a good shot to do some real damage this week.
Now we get to some place differential guys. We'll start with Daniel Suarez, 7,600, starting 26th. I've given a score of 7. I think it's going to be tough to want to fit him in your lineups. There's a couple drivers below him that I feel a little bit more confident in this range. That's why I'm on a 7.
Yeah, I'm at a 7 as well. It's hard to see. It's hard to really gauge what we're going to get out of Trackhouse. They've been really inconsistent lately with reliability with the vehicles that they're rolling out with. I think Suarez has that PD upside, so you got to consider him. The same thing with Ryan Newman, 7,500, starting 29th. I'm going to be a little higher on Newman than Suarez. I'm going to give him a 7.5. I don't feel confident with that, but I think Newman's a guy that he should bring this home and get a decent finish. Should get top 20. If he's able to do that, he could easily hit 5x. So I'm a little higher on Newman than I am Suarez.
I am as well. I gave Newman a 7.5. I think he has a little bit more upside in this package. I lean that way a little bit more, but somebody I'm more confident in playing and is who I would lean to in this price range, Chris Buescher, 7,300, starting 25th. I've landed on an 8 with him because he's shown an ability on these mile and a halves this year to get the job done. He's got 3 top 10s. That's half the time we're on mile and a half. So he's finishing in the top 10 with that price range and that path to value, with being starting 29th as his starting position. Lots to be said there. I'm at an 8 with him. 25th.
25th, yeah, I was about to say. Wait, what? Yeah, I'm at an 8 as well on Buescher. He is my favorite out of these 4 that we're talking about right now: Suarez, Newman, Buescher, and Custer. So he's going to be my favorite out of this group. He seems to have been running the best overall, likely to be the highest own out of these 4. So you may try to build your GPP lineups or whatnot a little differently based on that. But I'd rather have Buescher. Cole Custer is the last guy of this group of four that we'll talk about. 7,100. He starts 28th. I'm only at a 6. There's really never confidence with Custer at this point, but he does have a win on a mile and a half, albeit late race restart. But he's a guy. I think Custer's is in a position this week. He might be really, really sneaky. I don't see a lot of people wanting to play him. He's been a huge letdown all year, so I'm not going to recommend playing him, but I might find some ways to get him in my lineups because he really doesn't have to do much to really hit value, but I can only feel confident giving him a 6.
I laid him at a 6.5. I see him as a great value in GPP. I think somebody else you could lean to in this price range under 7,000 that we're looking at now. Ricky Stenhouse, 6,800, starting 22nd. I landed on a 7.5 on old Ricky. I think this could be a track. We've seen mile and a half kind of be where he can be a little bit crazy, but he can get the job done at times as well. I think Ricky Stenhouse, having 4 top 15s in these style of races, you give him that. He's already 5X. I like him a lot. I've given him a 7.5.
I'm at a 7 on Ricky. I like him quite a bit too. I'll find ways to get him in. He's fairly cheap. Should have some speed. He's had some good runs here, but again, you never know what you're going to get with Ricky. He could wreck out the first lap. We've seen that before. So never confident playing Ricky, but if there's a good place to do it, I think this is a good track for it. I want to talk about Eric Jones next. He comes in starting 16th, $6,500. Some good, not too expensive, but I am going to have a hard time wanting to play Jones. I'm going to be at a 4 on him. Do you see, I know you're at a 5, but do you see anyone really wanting to jump down and play Jones? Because I feel like if they're going to come down and pick anyone from this price range, they're probably going to Bubba or Ryan Preece, who's right around them. Do you see Jones being a viable play this week?
It's going to be tough. I think I might have him in 1 or 2 lineups just because he's where he's starting. It doesn't offer a lot of upside, pretty much downside. We haven't seen the consistency there. I don't really think it's a great fit, but there's not very many plays in this $7,000 and below price range this week. I think somebody we could look at is Corey LaJoie. I've given him an impact score of 5. He's starting 27th, 6,200. We've seen him have some speed at times, just the inconsistencies and being a backmarker team. It's just hard to get the consistent finishes there.
Yeah, I'm not really liking what I'm seeing out of Corey LaJoie this year. So if we look at just the mile and a half, just this year alone, in 6 races, his average finish is 28.3. Not good, and he has 1 top 20 in those 6 races. Normally, he's a value guy that we're looking towards, and he had a nice stretch there where I think he had, 5 or 6 top 20s in a row. He was really clicking. We're like, all right, finally we're seeing something from that Spire team, but the last few weeks have been rough. If there's a lot of chaos and mayhem, he's a guy that can pass those guys and just get a better finish because of that. But I don't know if we get that out of this Las Vegas race. I don't know how much just guys not finishing the race that we're going to see. So I'm only going to be at a 5 on LaJoie. I think there's a couple other plays I'd just rather go to. Just they're a little cheaper. They open up the salary board a little bit more. Kind of my favorite down in this range that you're going to have to be looking at is going to be Michael McDowell. 5,900, he starts 23rd. He's not getting that starting position boost from being in the playoffs since he got eliminated last week. So we're finally back to, I think, being able to play McDowell and have him hit his value because he's a legit top 20 threat even on this track in this package. So I'm going to be at a 6.5 on McDowell here at Vegas.
I'm at a 7. I think he offers a great path to value. Starting 23rd, his average finish is 17th on a mile and a half this year. 5 top 20s. If he hits his average of 17th place finish, he's already over 5X. I like him a lot for a value play here. Anthony Alfredo, 5,700, starting 32nd, is somebody you might take a look at. To me, starting 5th, I've given him a 5 with that starting position of 32nd.
Yeah,
it's going to be tough.
I was going to rate him a 0 if he was starting 5th. So, yeah, you're right. Starting 32nd, he's in this position every week. He's a guy that we feel like he should be getting between a 27th and 24th place finish based on that car's performance, maybe a little higher. But this is still I mean, he got thrown to the wolves this year, man. He's going out. He's running most of these races with no qualifying, no practice. He has no chance to dial anything in. And then they unload with the car that he's already behind the 8-ball with. So if they don't unload with a good car, I mean, he's going to get lapped probably fairly early, which makes him a little less viable. But if they can come with a little bit of speed and unload, I'm going to be – I mean, you kind of almost have to play Alfredo kind of in this price range. I'm going to have 5 as well because there's just not a ton of value. I think this week I would honestly – let me ask you this, I guess, just – if you're picking between just LaJoie and Alfredo, all your other picks in your lineups would be filled, so you could have either of them. Because we rated them both 5s across the board. You like LaJoie more, or do you like Alfredo more?
LaJoie. I see more consistency, and he has a better car if it comes off the truck hot.
I mean, that's the smart answer, but I almost feel like it's Alfredo this week, just given the fact that LaJoie's been so poor at 1.5 miles, and if Alfredo just does a little bit better than what he's been doing, he's got a little less downside in my opinion than LaJoie, even his starting position. But either way, I think you're probably not feeling comfortable with any of these guys in your lineup.
No, and if you want to see the full list of our impact scores, you can check it out in the race guide. That link is below. And thank you for watching. If you watched this far, go ahead and please hit that subscribe button because it helps us out and we know our content's relative to you. And thank you so much for watching. If you would like to, again, get in on that DraftKings contest, it's free. Drop your DK tag below. Drop some comments below. We love the engagement. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Those links are below in the section. Dude, I'm excited for this action. Is there anything you want to wrap up this week with?
No, I'm just ready to see how the next chapter of the playoffs unfold. Do we see Elliott and Harvick round 2? The rematch? Do we see some other playoff drivers get into it? It's not as likely given that it's a longer track. Short tracks tend to bring that extra drama out. But it's going to be a lot of pressure, man. Like I mentioned earlier, I think a lot of guys feel like this may be their only chance to lock themselves into the next round. No one wants to be playing that points battle going into Talladega and the Roval. So I think we're going to see some really crazy moves. If we get some late restarts, man, get ready to see 5 wide racing, literally. That's how this package plays out on this style of track. So it's going to be fun. Under the lights, I always love watching under the lights action. And then you add the playoffs to it. It's awesome. It's
NASCAR playoffs. We're excited for it. Enjoy the race. Let us know how you do. Good luck. This has been the DK Garage. Jeremy, Joe, and we'll see you next time.